Hey everyone, and welcome to another Game Explained discussion. I'm your host, Derek Bittner, and I'm joined today by Joe Merrick of Serebii.net to discuss the latest episodes of Pokémon Generations, the Legacy and The Reawakening. More tales from Johto this week, so what'd you think, Joe?
I think they are both very interesting, but they weren't very action-filled, and that makes me think if maybe that is why we had 2 episodes this week.
That might be the case, but I'll say this, I enjoyed these way more than any of the battle-heavy episodes.
That's true. I mean, the Blue versus the Elite Four one was meant to be battle-heavy, and it wasn't exactly the best.
Yeah, that's sort of... But it is interesting that they went this route and focused much more on the lore of Pokemon, which I find much more fascinating. Like, we get a character study of Silver and his backstory with Giovanni, why he is so focused on strength, yet we're still, like, if you're aware of the games, he's still at a point where he's still focused on strength, but not like the end-all be-all that he was before, because he seems confident in his Pokemon, and playing through Gold, Silver, Crystal, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, you always see him as this, like, I don't put up with weak Pokemon at all. They are worthless to me if they are weak. It's sort of interesting to see that sort of subtle character development. Whether or not it's intentional or not, I'm not sure, but it was still, I don't know, I found it interesting.
Well, that is something which kind of happens in the games. I mean, as you said, in the games, he's a bit like, yeah, I only want strong Pokemon. If Pokemon's not strong, it's useless. But as the game progresses, he starts adopting the more accepted attitude about Pokemon. Especially when you end up in the Dragon's Den with him and Claire. He fully accepts that and stays there to do some training, and that's where you can rebattle him, I think, if memory serves.
Mm. Yeah, and we never actually see Silver challenge the Elite Four, because the last battle happens before you go there, and you just sort of disappears until you find him again in Kanto.
Yeah, I mean, in Gold and Silver, he never really did that, did he? You just battled him before you went in, and that was it.
That was sort of your denouement to see, like, to give him his final bit of character growth, but you never saw what he did beyond that. And this sort of, I guess, takes place after that moment, which is interesting in and of itself, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, with this, the thing which I mostly found interesting was how, even though Generations is meant to be stuff you see away from the games, the bit when it cuts to the character bit with him and Giovanni, that was near enough word for word the scene from Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Oh,
really? See, I never accessed that scene where you meet up with Giovanni again and have Silver there. So that I didn't realize that matched up so well.
Yeah, I mean, that was something which very few people saw. You needed to have the event Serebii to activate that event. And that was always a really cool event. It kind of filled in gaps of what happened with Giovanni. And with Generations doing this, it makes me happy because it's showing everything for people who may not have seen that, as it was event only.
Huh. Do you think, though, like, I'm assuming there's, like, was the purpose of that event Giovanni going after Serebii?
No, it was Serebii just taking you through time, and it took you to Route 22 where Giovanni was confronted by Silver and talking about it, and then it took you to Tojo Falls where you actually battled Giovanni.
Huh. That's really cool, actually. So, I was curious if we're going to get have Serebii show up in some way, but that doesn't seem like it's going to happen unless they find some story to tell. I rewatched the trailer just out of curiosity. It's like, what events haven't we seen yet? And there's the bit with Heatran, a trainer battling Heatran, and then some girl running from the Ghost Pokemon. And those, I'm not quite sure what event that matches up with. So.
Well, from what I can tell, the girl is Cheryl, and it's going to be her and her Chansey, because in Diamond and Pearl, you team up with her in Eternal Forest, and you go through that, and you end up at the old chateau, and that's got Ghost Pokemon in it. And the Heatran one in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum at Stark Mountain, you team up with, I think his name is Buck, and he's got a Claydol, so that's possibly going to be...
That would make sense, because it is a Claydol fighting against Heatran. So we sort of have an idea, but it's actually, that means we know nothing of what's coming out of Gen 3. And I assume that's probably going to be happening pretty soon. Before we move on to that, though, let's go ahead and talk about episode 6, which is The Reawakening. And as we thought, Yusin is the focus when it comes to the story of Suicune, Entei, and Raikou. And I thought this was also really great in showing like a nice origin story for these legendary beasts.
Yeah, I definitely really enjoyed it. I really enjoy when things kind of get into the proper mythology of things, because we've always known that Ho-Oh resurrected these Pokemon, but we never really saw it, and seeing that, it actually crushed a lot of people's childhoods, because they had the theory of Raikou, Entei, and Suicune being Jolteon, Flareon, and Vaporeon.
Mm-hmm.
That has just completely crushed that theory. So
yeah, just a bit. They just sort of like dog-shaped things, and I've gotten a lot of flack about calling them legendary dogs because that's always what I heard them referred to. But they look dog-like to me in that. But that's why I'll stick with legendary beasts. So this, not ruffle any feathers, but just saying. But yeah, I mean, I'm a guy that's always enjoyed Ho-Oh more than Lugia, so it was great seeing Ho-Oh have some attention paid to it and seeing it resurrected and just having that sort of those sharp eyes looking down at the pitiful humans that are scared of this resurrection.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting that in this one episode of Generations, Ho-Oh has done more than it did in the entirety of the main anime.
Yeah. I think the only time I know of Ho-Oh showing up is just to fly over Ash in the first episode, and then, it signals great things.
Yeah, and then it flew over Ash in the final Johto episode and the final Advance episode.
Don't worry, kid, you're still going to do great things, I promise. But it's great to see Ho-Oh fulfill its typical role and actually see that animated and get this mythology out. And I don't know, I thought it was really well done, especially to see sort of like the Johto of the past and take this different art style with it that just works.
Yeah, I was about to comment on the art style. The art style for the stuff in the past was really well done. I was really impressed with that.
Yeah, it really nailed it. I think that's what makes it so strong. It's got this great art style matched up with an interesting backstory, that sort of mythology of it, and it sort of explains why Yusin might be so just enraptured by this tale and Suicune in particular. And just to see the actual rainbow feather at the end, I thought that was just a nice little moment.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yep. So, I mean, there's not really a whole lot to say about these overall, just general feelings, and especially when I genuinely liked them. I think they both were very strong additions to this series. But what do you think we'll see next? Do you think we'll continue within Johto, or are we going to move on to Hoenn? Because I almost think we're going to move on to Hoenn because we did get these 2 episodes back to back, and it's just sort of was stuck in there. It's like, oh, okay, let's just get through Johto now.
Well, I think it's hard to say, but from a logical standpoint, there are 18 episodes, there are 6 generations, 3 episodes per generation, and so that would mean that Hoenn would be next if that's the way they've gone about doing this.
That would make sense, yes. So, yeah, I'd say Hoenn. Now, what stories do you think we could expect from the Hoenn episodes?
Probably some sort of clash between Team Aqua and Team Magma, maybe them awakening the primal Pokemon from the seafloor cavern, because we don't actually see that in the games, we just see the massive beam of light coming up when you exit Moss Deep City Gym.
That is true.
At least in Oras. Maybe something with Zinnia.
Oh yeah, Zinnia episode would be
because
interesting.
even though that's Generation 6, it is kind of Ruby and Sapphire, and we've seen Fire Red and Leaf Green and Heart Gold and Soul Silver Crystal stuff come up in the Gen 1 and 2 elements of Pokemon Generations. So, including Zinnia in something, because Zinnia's got a massive backstory, which is just rife for this sort of thing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I'm sure Steven Stone will be focused on in some way because he's a popular champion, especially for Gen 3. There's a lot that really can be done, and I think it'll be interesting. And I think Looker actually might be our sort of main character almost, because if we're going to be focusing on the evil teams and we can't use the actual trainers, not in any real substantive way, might as well use an international cop.
Yeah, it is really good to see Looker like this, because he is as you say, international. He is a much beloved character. He has appeared in a lot of games now. Platinum, X and Y, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. I think he might have been in Black 2 and White 2. Can't quite remember. My mind's gone blank. I think he was.
Yeah, it all kind of works, and I think it had a shaky start, but I think it's finally starting to get its footing. It's not not perfect in any way, but I think Generations is doing what it set out to do.
Yeah, it's showing the various untold stories of the Pokemon world. I mean, it does, with what we know for Gen 4, it does seem like we pretty much know, if there are just 3 episodes, we pretty much know what the 3 episodes are going to be. There's going to be the Cheryl one, there's going to be the Buck one, and there's going to be a Cyrus and Giratina one, because they were on the poster. But it could still be good.
Oh, yeah.
I have been looking forward to every Friday for these episodes. They are quite enjoyable. They're not perfect, but what is these days?
Good point. But I don't know, keeping up the Pokemon hype and getting ever closer to Sun and Moon, so can't blame them for that.
Yeah, and ending the 20th anniversary with a fantastic celebration of all of Pokemon.
Yes, that is the good stuff. So, alright, well I think that covers it for our Pokemon Generations discussion, so thank you for watching, and if you liked this video, be sure to like us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. And Joe, where can they find you at?
You can find me on the website Serebii.net, or on Twitter at Joe Merrick or at SerebiiNet.
Awesome. And of course, stay tuned to GameXplain for more on Pokemon and other things gaming too. Until next time, bye.